Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nintendo Campfire. Today, we have something super exciting to talk about, something that I've been waiting a long time for. If you know me, if you've watched my content, you know we've been discussing this rumor for a while and that this is my favorite game of all time. But it was officially revealed in that June 9th Nintendo Direct that Ocarina of Time is coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 this year, and the game is being fully remade or reimagined. And I cannot wait to get into that today with you guys, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to break down that initial reveal trailer, how that all played out. We're going to talk about some of the discussions and some of the things that people have had an issue with, because of course there's a little bit of controversy, as there is with everything these days. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I think they could add, as this is a new release of an absolute classic. So I cannot wait to jump into this, guys. Let's do it. So before we get into anything, I just want to say that I think that the initial reveal was amazing. Those first few notes of Saria's song awakened something in me, and I was just so ecstatic the moment I heard that do 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 do. It was just so good. I was watching it with my girlfriend. I immediately was like, rubbing her shoulder, shaking her. I was like, this is it. This is actually happening. I was so excited. I think that the way the trailer played out, mainly having to do with the tapestry, was great. I love seeing the tapestries in the Zelda series. I think that the woven artwork on it was beautiful. Um, I cannot wait to see more of our boy who didn't have a fairy, because that's my boy. Ocarina of Time Link has been with me through everything. It's my favorite game of all time. That is the Link that I feel closest to. So I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this for a long time. After the initial wave of excitement, I was a little disappointed. I'll say that. And that is because I was disappointed in how short the reveal trailer was. But after a little bit of reflection, I think that that is more the result of the leak of this game existing rather than the fault of the trailer. And I think that a lot of people are also disappointed at how quick of a look it was. But again, we'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit here. But I quickly want to say, I think that had we not had over 3 months to theorize and fantasize about what the remake that was all but confirmed would look like in its first look trailer, I think this trailer would have absolutely stunned us. And it already did, so it would have just been even more so. Honestly, this whole thing has kind of made me wish that the leak had never come out. I think that at the time, all I wanted to do was hear more about this game, and it got me incredibly hyped just knowing that it was coming from people like Nate the Hate, etc. But I think that had Nintendo been able to have the first ever word about this remake come from this reveal trailer, no one would have felt like this trailer was too short. We would have just been fully satisfied just knowing it was a real game. So, again, after a little reflection, it doesn't bother me that much. Initially, because we had heard people like Nate the Hate speculate, he did say in his podcast that it wasn't leaked information, it was a speculation that Ocarina of Time would have the biggest spot on the Direct. And people have been following him very closely. He has a great track record. He's always right. So everyone clung on to that and was expecting a big blowout, like full on gameplay, maybe 10, 15 minutes, a full segment in the Direct. We got around 2 minutes, and that's totally okay. If that leak had never happened, and again, I kind of wish that it didn't. No hate to Nate the Hate, but he I feel like even if he himself knew that this is how they were going to reveal it, like literally just saying this exists, he probably wouldn't have said 3 months ago that the project exists, because that really took a lot of the wind out of the surprise. But you kind of have to separate yourself from that. Like, it is impossible to avoid leaks these days. You go on the internet, YouTube, Safari, Google, whatever it may be, that algorithm is going to feed you these leaks. It's really impossible to avoid. So, for anyone saying you shouldn't have looked or you shouldn't have read about it, you could see in the headline that the game was coming, and if it said it was from Nate the Hate, you could guess that it was true. So it's kind of just an issue with the way things are online these days. But in general, again, if that trailer had been the very first time we heard about this game, I think no one would be saying that it was too short. And I don't even feel that way anymore after a little bit of reflection. I think that trailer was amazing. It was beautiful, well put together. The music was great. It leaned into the music aspect of Ocarina of Time, which is one of the big standout things people remember about it. It's memorable. The songs are nostalgic, and I think that that just shows they're handling this with care. Um, and in any case, I don't imagine it will be much longer before we hear about the game again. The game is coming this year. People have been theorizing what form that'll take when we hear about this game again. It could potentially be in some sort of dedicated Zelda Direct, maybe Zelda Ocarina of Time Direct, or they might just upload a singular trailer to YouTube and Twitter, Nintendo Today, and whatnot. They do that a lot these days. But I think absolute latest, worst case scenario, we hear about this game again in the September Direct, which usually happens every year. The September Direct is like the absolute latest they could possibly wait. So, worst case scenario, we wait 3 months, but I have a feeling they'll start talking about this sooner because this is going to be their big game for the year. But back to the Ocarina of Time reveal trailer. It was so well put together. I love the Legend of Zelda series tapestries. Kind of started in the Wind Waker with the opening scene to that game, the legendary hero, which describes Ocarina of Time Link, which is why it felt really nice to see Ocarina of Time Link in that the Wind Waker, the legendary hero-esque art style in this trailer. That was great. Um, I think the art in that tapestry was beautiful. It's something I love that they've been doing in games like Breath of the Wild with the Great Calamity tapestry that actually sits behind Impa in game in her house in Kakariko Village, but it was used in the trailers a lot, just like this one here for Ocarina of Time. Tears of the Kingdom with its cave art, which in the initial reveal trailer was the cave art depicting Ganondorf riding on a horse with some of his little bokoblin army waging war on Hyrule, and then in the final game, it ended up being something more in the form of like depicting the imprisoning war, Ganondorf, Sonia, Rauru, and Zelda, and the Light Dragon, of course. So they've been doing these murals, and I think that they're a great thing because it really makes the Legend of Zelda feel like a legend. These tapestries, murals, and whatnot are going to be passed on throughout time, and I think it's awesome. It gives it this cool, ancient feeling, and that tapestry was gorgeous, woven looking. I thought it was great. In that trailer, we're going to discuss kind of how that played out a bit here and a little later on in the video. We hear a voice discussing the Kokiri Forest, and the Great Deku Tree, all while getting a great look at them in that beautiful tapestry art style. Now, little side note here: this voice that narrates the trailer, could be the Great Deku Tree itself, which might point to this game having voice acting for the dialogue. More on that later. After we see that tapestry, we zoom into a corner on that same tapestry, and there's Link sleeping in that beautiful depiction in that tapestry, Wind Waker, legendary hero-esque art style, like I mentioned before, and it zooms in on that to reveal what young Link will look like in the game. And at first, I was shocked. I remember shaking my girlfriend's arm and saying, "No way, it looks so good." I was shocked because I didn't think Nintendo would go for such a realistic and detailed art style at first, but I was just taken aback at how good it looked, and I'm very happy with how it looks. I know there are some people who don't like the way that it looks, and I really like it. I feel like this is very fitting for Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time was always a realistic high fantasy adventure. If you look back at the original N64 release, it was always realistic. Technology just wasn't at the point. It was so angled and, the classic N64 art styles that everybody loves. Angular and beautiful, blocky, running at 14 frames per second, but that's the game we know and love. So I think that had they had this technology today, Ocarina of Time would, in 1998, look just like it does now. If they had had today's technology in 1998. There are even places in the original N64 release, like the Temple of Time, Castle Town, etc., that look like photographs taken out of the real world. And I do truly believe this realistic art style was the Zelda team's vision all those years ago, now fully realized. And I've been a Zelda fan for such a long time that I wasn't shocked by this art style. I actually think it's really fitting. It reminds me a bit of something like Hyrule Warriors. The original Wii U release had an art style very similar to this. Young Link is even featured in that game. So, and that's honestly one of my favorite looks for Link. Hyrule Warriors Play the Definitive Edition on Nintendo Switch. Beautiful looking game. It really feels like Hyrule fully realized. So, I also love art styles. I tend to like fancy, unique art styles more than realism, but I think for Ocarina of Time, this is perfect. And again, it was just a quick look. Maybe my opinion will change in the future, but for now, seeing Link and his treehouse in such detail looked so good. And it still has elements of that anime art style that we see in things like the Ocarina of Time art from 1998 and the 3D re-release in 2011. So I don't think it's straying far from the original vision at all. I think this is an almost perfect depiction of what Nintendo should go for an Ocarina of Time remake or reimagining. Um, Again, it was just a quick look. I think it's a little too soon for people to be judging it so harshly, but I personally like it. We'll see once we see some actual gameplay how I really feel, but so far, I'm loving it. And another note on that section of the trailer where we see Link in game, I think this trailer showed us that this is not just going to be a one-to-one remake like Ocarina of Time 3D was. Link's outfit and hat are totally redesigned, not only in higher detail to the point where they look woven, but there's even an overall-esque or leather armor note to the original green tunic that Link wears. We could even see some swirly Kokiri-esque designs on it, and we can see his hat, which fans have noticed in analysis of the trailer, was kind of in the darkness to the left side of where Link is sleeping, and it seems to have maybe some sort of red beads on it, which is a note that wasn't in the original. And I don't see the point of Nintendo redesigning only the characters in this game, and this is a good time to mention that Link's treehouse is totally redesigned too. We can't even see the window that was there in the N64 and 3DS version. Everything looks reimagined, not only redesigned. So I think that bodes well for the whole game being reimagined. And Nintendo has this philosophy where they'll say things in interviews like, we're not going to make a new game in X series unless we have new ideas. And I think that Nintendo sees this as an opportunity to bring one of, if not the best, for me, it's the best game of all time to new fans, new people, and to let fans who have already loved and appreciate this game experience it in new light. And we'll talk about this again in the possible new additions section of this video, but I think that we'll see the whole world reimagined and expanded on. But quick, back to the reveal trailer breakdown. We also see that while Link is sleeping in that bed, he kind of starts to stir in his sleep and move around, and the Triforce appears on his hand, which people have kind of gotten in a little bit of a fuss about online because in the original Ocarina of Time lore, the Triforce doesn't dwell with the holders until after Link opens the door to the Sacred Realm by opening the door in the Temple of Time and letting Ganondorf access the Sacred Realm, which splits the Triforce into the three pieces. I think that this, for the sake of this trailer, is more of a node, like more of a nod to him being chosen and being someone who has the spirit of the hero within him rather than the Triforce of Courage actually being with him at this point in his journey in the beginning. I think he'll still actually obtain it after the door to the Temple of Time is opened, but I think, again, this is just to show that Link is the embodiment of the spirit of the hero. And that's the whole trailer. It after that it cuts to black, says 2026, and yes, Nate the Hate was right. The leaks were true. This game is coming this year, and I could not be more excited. I cannot wait to see more. Hopefully, within the next couple weeks, maybe a month or so, we see some more. But this is their big game, and I'm super excited for it. Before we jump into what I think could potentially be added as new additions for this game, I want to talk about the logo, which I'll put on screen now. It is beautiful. It is golden. The minute that logo showed up on screen, I was happy. Ocarina of Time feels to me like the most golden of the Zelda games. It is the gold standard for gaming. It was all those years ago. It defined 3D gaming. Zelda has always been a golden series. There's the Triforce, the Sacred Realm, Zelda's power, usually the power of good and light in the series is depicted in gold, and Ocarina of Time is the gold standard. I think it is the most golden feeling, golden vibe game. So I think it's really fitting that they went all gold for the logo, rather than the usual red or in the wild era where there's that like kind of rustic, broken down stone look to it. I think gold was the right choice, and this is also the 40th anniversary game. Gold is the anniversary color, so I think that's fitting. Some people are upset about it and they miss the old red logo, and I do too, but not in this case. Like, I kind of wish they brought the red logo back for games like Echoes of Wisdom, but I think for Ocarina of Time, the gold fits. Pure gold, baby. That's what this game is. Um, that's really it for a couple of the little controversies there, and the trailer. I think it was a great trailer, very well done. The music was amazing. Let's jump into what I think could potentially be added as new additions in this game. So, like I mentioned earlier, I think they're going to be reimagining this game, not just remaking it one to one, which makes me think that every town in the game is going to be made bigger with added characters, added dialogue, and more area to explore, especially places like Hyrule Field, which is an obvious one. I think there will be more greenage, more trees, more bushes, more plants, more wildlife. Like, think Breath of the Wild. There's squirrels, birds, everything all over the place. It's 2026 now. They couldn't do it in 1998, but they can now. I think they'll add more life to Hyrule Field, make it a bigger explorable area, but not too big to the point where it feels disconnected. I think that they'll respect the original design philosophy and then add more to it, which Nintendo is really good about respecting the original design philosophy. They say basically that sentence all the time. They want to be respectful to what is already great while looking for ways to make it better. And I think they'll do that. So especially for places like Castletown, which in the original game, you were kind of stuck at a stationary camera viewpoint and Link explored around like a still stationary image. Not going to be the case here. I think we're fully going to be able to explore Castletown, and other places like the Temple of Time and outside of it at least in full 3D motion. This is also a good time to mention, seems pretty obvious, but I'll mention it here. Ocarina of Time has never had dual camera controls. Now that we have dual analog sticks on our controllers here, there's no reason why we won't be able to fully move the camera in every situation. That's totally something they're going to do. Should really help with immersion, and I can't wait to be able to see this world I've fallen in love with since I was a kid from all new different angles. So every area is probably going to be expanded. That goes for places like Goron City, all of the dungeons, especially Hyrule Field and the towns, and really everything. I think everything is going to be made more explorable from every angle. Of course, with added dialogue and characters to fill in what would have been empty space. But on that note, I'd like to mention that I think voice acting is kind of a shoo-in. It was a big focus in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Some people don't like the voice acting. I love it. It feels way more immersive. I love hearing these characters get voices, and I think that Ocarina of Time could really benefit from it. It could totally make cutscenes and storylines way more impactful and cinematic. Think of every moment with Sheik, like specifically Sheik and Link talking at Lake Hylia could be so beautiful with some voice acting. I think even Navi will have voice lines, which is exciting because instead of having to click through a text box, maybe she'll just start speaking and we'll see subtitles as we're playing the game. Some people feel like Navi interrupts too much. I think a good solution to that would be just letting Navi speak through voice acting rather than stopping your gameplay to scroll through a text box. I've never felt that Navi was annoying. I love Navi. She's my friend. I have a little keychain of her. I love Navi dearly. So I think that's something they'll do too. Everyone should be voiced, at least the important cutscenes and Navi's dialogue. Other than that, I think that we're going to see things that were cut from the original Ocarina of Time now that they have the ability to add them and they're not under such time constraints like they were in 98. So that's things like the light dungeon that everyone talks about, very famous in like those Did You Know Gaming videos or cut content from Ocarina of Time videos. We wake up as adult Link and we meet Rauru in human form and leave the Temple of Time in Sacred Realm, and we're given the light medallion. This time they could have some sort of introductory to Adult Link dungeon, a light dungeon, which was seemingly the original plan. In early versions of Ocarina of Time sage medallions, which we get for completing the adult dungeons and awakening the sages, are just kind of something that sits in our inventory and certifies that we've completed the dungeons and awakened the sages. But in the original plan for Ocarina of Time, they would have been special ability items. Um, Things like Farore's Wind and Din's Fire and so on. But I think that they could definitely bring that back and let the medallions give you abilities. I can't remember right now off the top of my head some of the things that the medallions would have done, but it would be pretty cool to have more items to use. Like I said before, Nintendo loves to preserve the legacy of their games, all while adding new stuff to them. They don't really see a point in remaking games unless they have new ideas. So I think they'll, like I said before, maintain the integrity of the original release while adding new or previously cut content, and the medallions kind of fit with that idea there. Um, I think that this game should include Master Mode too. That was something that was added in the re-releases of Ocarina of Time, the one in the collector's pack on GameCube and in the 3DS 2011 release. Master Mode is for people to play. I don't know if they'll make it flip the world like it does in at least the 3DS version, but I think having the challenge mode is totally something you should do. This should be the ultimate version of Ocarina of Time. I don't see any reason to exclude it. Um, make the enemies deal more damage just like they usually do. They can flip the world. Like I don't see the point in doing that now, but they can mirror the world like they did in the 3DS version. But I think in general, other than that, we're going to have more freedom of movement with the camera controls. Like I mentioned before, we're going to have more buttons for easier access with the items and Ocarina playing. We have so many more buttons on controllers now these days. They should really be able to make everything intuitive. I also have a prediction that I think this game might be rated T. That's because in 1998, some of the things that we were doing weren't in high enough detail to get that T rating. But I think the story of Ocarina of Time and some of the stuff that happens could earn this game a teen rating, so rated T. I'm thinking of things like after Ganondorf has had 7 years reign in Hyrule, when you walk out of the Temple of Time, which is a scene I cannot wait to see in 4K, 60 FPS, hopefully. Um, Castletown is surrounded by Redeads. I mean, we're going to be seeing enemies like Dead Hand, Redeads. We're going to be seeing Bongo Bongo. These are all pretty graphic things. They weren't able to be realized to their full vision in the past because the technology at the time couldn't show that. But I think this game just being made modern is probably going to earn it a T rating. And if they wanted to, in the original release of Ocarina of Time, in the final battle, Ganondorf bleeds red, which is what earns a game a higher rating. So they changed that in revisions that were released later to make Ganondorf's blood green, to get around a higher rating than E10 plus, which is usually what Zelda games are rated. But I definitely don't think it's an impossibility that this game could get a T rating. I kind of hope it does. It's not really going to make a difference either way, but it would make me feel like they're fully going to embrace the designs of some of the creepier enemies in the game if we do see that. But in general, guys, I am so excited for this game. I've been asking for it for years. I know that people are saying nobody asked for this. Their time would be better spent on a new release. And trust me, guys, they're working on a new Zelda game at the same time. This is something to celebrate the series' 40th anniversary and show us the power of the Switch 2 and to breathe new life into a classic game. There are people who have been asking for it. I am one of them. When I was like 12 years old, I wrote to Tantalus, the people who made Twilight Princess HD, and I said, is there any way you guys could please bring Ocarina of Time to Nintendo Switch? I just want to be able to play it on my Switch. Obviously, since then, we've got the game on N64, Nintendo Switch Online, but still, I've been wanting this game to be remade for so long just because I love this game and it deserves to be seen in a whole new light. Like, we're just at a point now where this game can be made so cinematic and beautiful, and it doesn't have to take away from the original release. I still love the N64 graphics. That's my favorite era in gaming. I love it. I love all of the N64 classic games. They're some of my favorite visually, and they're some of my favorites to play. But I think that it's totally fair, and I've been asking for it myself for years to bring this game in a new light, give it some new life, really breathe that new light into it. I'll be able to play it with my girlfriend. She kind of gets sick from playing older games like Ocarina of Time. She couldn't really do it because she's not used to seeing things move in that lower frame rate and being so angular and muddy, but that's just where graphics were at the time. I respect that, but for people like her, it's hard for them to play older games. So I think it makes it more accessible for newer fans, and it lets us see the Zelda game that introduced the dungeons in the 3D format we know and love them and have been missing them, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom aren't classic games. This brings us a classic Zelda game, and if it's a reimagining like I think it is, it's going to be a mix between something old and new, and I think that is the best case scenario. We're going to be able to hear that music, some of the best Zelda music in the series, fully realized, the dungeons fully realized, the towns and story fully realized, and I just cannot wait, guys. So that's really all I have to say. I just wanted to get out and make a video with kind of my thoughts on this. I'm so stoked to hear more, and you can count on me making another video when more does come. So please, guys, subscribe, comment, like, let me know what you guys think of this trailer. What would you have done differently if you were in charge of making it? And how do you feel about this re-release? Take care, you guys. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.